I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Jules Sains. That's my buddy Gordon Dymowski. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to review the movie The Right Stuff, which is very, very entertaining. Yes, it's about actual historical events. I always thought Sam Shepard was was underrated, but I tell you, I wasn't who I wasn't expecting to be in this movie. Um, the guy who's in The Rookie, what's his name? I can't remember. What is his name?
I
Literally,
don't know.
he's driving up with his wife. You guys know
Are you
about
talking about Dennis Quaid?
Yeah, Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, this is a very famous Dennis Quaid movie. Yeah, he's great. It was one of his
Yeah.
earliest films, and he's very good.
Hey, I was surprised to see William Russ in this movie.
Who's William Russ? He's Tuvok, right?
No. He was no. You're thinking Tim Russ. William
Tim
Russ
Russ.
was like the other major bad guy in Wise Guy.
Oh, it's not a series I saw. So who does he play in this?
He's the guy. I forget the name, but he's got the jacket with the number 13 on it. He's like in the very first few scenes. It's one of those blink and you'll miss it deals.
Oh, cool. But he's in it. Good. Neat.
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah. Levon Helm of the band is the narrator of the movie.
I knew I heard that voice from somewhere.
Yeah, that's Levon Helm. And the subject of the movie, The Last Waltz.
Mhm.
Very fine Martin Scorsese documentary. Of course, you have Harry Shearer and Jeff Goldblum almost in their own movie. You get Donald Moffat, very fine English actor, as I think he's English.
LBJ?
As LBJ, vaguely fresh off of playing Rem in Logan's Run, the TV series, plays the android Rem. Yeah, a lot of one of the great founders of 1960s anarchic American comedy on the improv scene. A guy named Scott Beach plays Werner von Braun in the movie. A lot of really idiosyncratic little parts here and there. And of course, General Chuck Yeager with his immortal line, "A Coke?" Yes, in a clean glass. In Poncho's Happy Bottom Writing Club. That's and then in terms of the women in the film, Barbara Hershey, of Hannah and her sisters and The Entity, and then you've got Veronica Cartwright off of Alien and another Philip Kaufman movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. She's very good in that. They like to work together a lot. And of course, Philip Kaufman, when he made this, was only 6 or 7 or 8 years away from being the first person to attempt to make a Star Trek movie. Star Trek Planet of the Titans was originally a Philip Kaufman film that was going to have Ken Adam sets and a Ken Adam redesign of the Enterprise is really interesting. The design of which still sort of shows up in Star Trek Discovery. What a fascinating. And Pamela Reed as Gordo's wife, who's just luminous and funny and identifiable. And you might remember her from Kindergarten Cop as Arnold's partner, who gets sick, and that's her, and that's why Arnold has to go in. And Pamela Reed would have been my choice to play Catherine Janeway.
Yeah, her character in Kindergarten Cop, I think, gets pregnant or something like that.
Yes.
If memory serves. But in in this movie, I really like how they shot the flying sequences, which they used an old Air Force base in San Francisco, which was really cool. That's where a lot of the movie was shot, which is awesome. I like that. What did you guys think of the cool flying sequences and how they shot them?
Well, I think the whole movie is about that need to go further. And this is kind of one of my favorite films because of all of us, I'm the one who I was born in the late 60s. So I grew up in the wake of the Apollo moon landings, where I had a toy Saturn V rocket. I had this book called We Come in Peace with an astronaut on it talking about the Apollo missions and the Mercury missions and the Gemini missions. The launching of the Voyager space probe is in my memory. And that led to an exploration of cosmos. So the idea of moving past and moving far, and the fact that this is, I mean, they tie it into the pilot's need for speed and wanting to be the fastest, but it's that striving to go one better. And I think the flying sequences kind of show not just that drive, but also the danger, because the first pilot who flies ends up dying. And that's like that this is not a begins. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like when years after the events of the movie, when you've got the Apollo missions, one of the things I found out recently is they weren't like experimenting with stuff and then putting in the rocket and launching it. The rockets were the experiments. Like the reason that the Apollo 8 rocket blew up was that they realized, oh, we don't need that much oxygen. We need to adjust the mix. But to your question about flying sequences, Jewel, I like this. And Jewel, I'm going to warn you, I love this movie. If you do not like this movie or you nitpick on it, it means you hate puppies and democracy.
Good, Patrick.
I mean, Patrick may disagree. He may not like this film, but that's.
Oh my God.
This is one of my 3 favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Siskel and Ebert would go around and around on whether this or Raging Bull is the best movie of the 80s. And to me, there's no question that this is a better film, because it's just as craftsmanlike, but it's about a nobler subject matter. And sometimes a movie and a piece of art needs to be affirmational. As much as we like art to be challenging and deconstructive and so on, sometimes the most deconstructive thing that you can do is to deconstruct cynicism and complacency. And that's what this movie really does. What's interesting, though, is that this was the cynical draft. There was a draft of the film that had been written earlier by William Goldman that was very rah-rah Reagan era, up with people kind of thing. And that I guess they thought it was too jingoistic and so on. And so they went to Phil Kaufman to give them something a little more realistic. But here's the thing. Phil Kaufman would give them something more realistic. He'd give them something more honest. And it just happens to be that the honest emotional impact and the honest message is sometimes Americans don't screw up. Sometimes our need for a frontier is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And we all feel that. The thing I love about this movie is that it doesn't necessarily make us all feel like astronauts, but it can kindle, I think, within us that sense, that Howard Hawks-like sense of mission. Mm-hmm. And that sense of accomplishing, and it does it in the most Alfred E. Newman 1970s, because it's the last great 70s art film, even though it was made in the 80s, sense. Because for me, the whole point of The Right Stuff is this. The Right Stuff is not about being the best pilot you ever saw. Or the best pilot you ever saw is not about flying the fastest and the furthest and so on and so forth. It is the acknowledgement that we will all screw up. Mm-hmm. Or that things will screw up around us. And how do we handle ourselves in that nosedive? How do we handle ourselves when we know the heat shield is gone? And when we've got the broken rib? And when the Liberty Bell goes down, and how did Grissom handle himself? By being the greatest astronaut NASA had, which is why he was in all 3 programs. And Gus kind of gets, if there is, we were talking about historical bloops and blips for the sake of drama, and I think they actually did a pretty good job of recovering Gus in the movie, but it really was a glitch. It really was a technical malfunction, from my understanding. The hatch that blew, that, in so many flights, never has a hatch just blown, except for now. And the movie, I won't say I wish the movie had done anything differently, but I was comforted to know in real life when I studied it that Gus was more innocent than the movie had time to go in and deal with. But even in how it deals with that, it's funny because maybe the right stuff that's being explored there is in how Gus handles his marriage, and in how Gus respects his wife, and how his wife respects him. And that maybe the whole point of the Gus Grissom sequence is how Betty Grissom handles that moment and the right stuff that she has. God, what a movie. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And what I love about this movie too is that the actors have such an earthiness and a realism to them. Like, as I was talking before the podcast, I'd seen the trailer for the new Disney Plus Right Stuff series. And oh my God, and it's same source material, but to me it looks awful because it's very generic. All the actors are relatively handsome, striking young men. Here, these are part of me wishes that they found like 6 more hours of unused footage from Philip Kaufman. I would spend 10 hours with this cast, not with the Disney Plus cast.
And the funny thing is that while they're all movie stars, no one is going to say that in the traditional good-looking sense. Scott Paulin is good-looking. Lance Henriksen is good-looking. Scott Glenn is good-looking. Fred Ward is good-looking. These are these are real guy-looking guys. No. They really are. I love how one of the weird little cosmetic issues in the movie that I think is just terrific is how enormous Lance Henriksen's ears are, and how they just stick out like Alfred E. Newman. And that, because this was a real person. This was not a movie star. This was a real person.
Yeah, that's something that's really lost in Hollywood today. Instead of finding actors that look gritty or don't look like a model in jeans who you want to put in front of the screen, they don't go out and get these gritty looking actors who look like a normal person, which just is awful. This movie does it takes actors who are gritty looking and casts them as the real people, and they play the parts really well. Yes, I do like this movie, just like I like Tombstone, just like I like Quiet Earth. But just like those movies, it has historical accuracy issues because Hollywood wants to be entertaining. And I don't have an issue with that, Hollywood wanting to be entertaining. It's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to entertain the audience. This is a movie that does entertain you. But what it also does is it makes you look at the human beings who did this, and not only makes you realize what they put at stake, but what the people around them were having to deal with, of having their loved ones go up and test this stuff. And what could they do? They could do absolutely nothing but watch. There's that scene where the what is it? The hot dog's burning on fire, and the guy's wife is thinking about her husband being on fire.
Yeah,
which
is a real harrowing bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, which is great, like psychology wise, because it gives you that understanding of, look, we were all taught in school how important the space race was. Really, what the right stuff does too is it reaffirms that. When you see this movie, it lets you know, yes, it was important to beat the Russians into outer space. It was probably one of the best programs that Kennedy initiated, really, in every way. Go ahead, guys.
It's got the Bay of Pigs to go up against. I had something really important I wanted to say, and it's gone now. So well, that's okay.
I think there are two things that really give this film a lot of the grit that it has. I think the first is that when this film was made, many of the men who were portrayed by actors were still alive. So I think there's a sense of they're not being treated. When you look at the Disney Plus trailer, they're treated almost like history. Here, it's like you see the humanity behind them. You see that it's not that kind of over reference. It's not like being overly reverential of these men. It's just like you see them as guys. You see them as human beings, not archetypes. And I would also say too, one of the at least it's the message that I take, and maybe it's because I grew up in the shadow of the space race. But there's a quote by Kennedy when he's talking about the moon, and the quote is that we don't do these things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard. And I know a lot of current talk about space travel is usually dominated by either a multimillionaire deciding to use overrated phallic symbols to get to the moon to advertise, or get to Mars to advertise, or it's well, why should we engage in space travel when we should improve our planet? And it's like life is tough. And I think in this film it talks about, life is not easy, but we do it because it's there. We do it because we aspire, to use a variation of Patrick's phrase, to be better. And I think this is one of those movies it's less rah-rah 80s jingoism. And I think whatever cynicism is there's at least the idea that there's more that we can achieve. There's more that we can aspire to.
Yeah, absolutely. They do a lot of really good stuff with I like how they shoot the desert sequences in this, which is because they talk about it being filmed mostly in San Francisco. I assume that they shot some scenes in the Mojave Desert. I could be wrong though.
I think they did. I mean, you have Caleb Deschanel, who is probably the greatest cinematographer alive. Driving them all crazy to get the lighting right and so on and so forth. They could really only shoot the thing at sunrise and sunset a lot of times because of how he wanted to make it happen.
No. What's interesting is that I like how they tested the astronauts for space, because they weren't being tested for necessarily going just to the moon. They were being tested for going up into space and coming right back down, which is like, holy hell.
But that's kind of how you at this point, it was like the goal was eventually, like in the early 60s, Kennedy said, hey, we're going to the moon. But the idea was, how far can we go up and still make it back? Because they always talk about spam in a can, which is you want your person to come back. Because the idea is if you get further up into space, at some point you can think about, okay, what will we need to get people? Because even the Apollo program, it started with orbiting around the moon, and then you have people land on the moon. And then you have conspiracy theorists saying, oh, well, we never went to the moon. And then you have Jewel complaining about this movie being historical and accurate. And remember, people, he hates puppies and democracy. Leave your notes in the comments below with arguing with me, but no, he hates puppies and democracy.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, listen to Patrick. He's a wise man. He knows things.
I'm looking for a real specific thing that is that I think is worth talking about, because it touches on exactly why we do all of this. And Gordon, I think you might know what I'm talking about. That's from Babylon 5. And it's so I've been trying to find the exact monologue, and I think it's from Deconstruction of Falling Stars. And basically there's a very cynical reporter who's been kind of hounding. It's first season, because it's I think it's Michael O'Hare who gives the monologue, and this just sums up why that series is so great. And it's where they run into all sorts of trouble, and the reporter is saying, why are you why are we devoting all this time and energy when we have problems on Earth, and so on and so forth. Gordon, you know what monologue I'm talking about?
I think I do, but I can't remember the actual words.
Sheridan's being confronted from the reporter on this, and the reporter, asks, and Sheridan, who's the lead character in the first season, says, "And God, now I look like Joe Straczynski." Jesus. Anyway, he says, "Listen, we get this question a lot. We've gotten this question since the Apollo program and before, and you can argue about all sorts of stuff, but the thing you can't argue is that one day the sun will die."
Yes, that's it.
And when it dies, it's going to take everything with it. It's going to take every dream of everyone who was ever born. It's going to take Lao Tzu and Shakespeare and Marilyn Monroe and Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mantle, and they're all going to be gone unless we move out into the stars. And that's why we do this. It's a statement that all of this is worth something. It's back to the 19th configuration. All this is worth something. All this has a point. Wow. And there is that imperative. As the film is taking place in a period where the United States is getting used to being in its fullness of leading, of American empire. And not just inheriting the mantle of being the first inventors of the mantle of custodians of the planet, in that they have the power to destroy it. Finally, the power to defend democracy means the power to destroy the planet. And that's a very nihilistic role for humans to suddenly be in. And so I think there are bigger ontological questions of who are we? What do we deserve to be able to do that are going on? And I think that's one of the reasons why, if we did not have a 1960s for the right stuff to take place in, the 1960s would have to be invented to tell this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to read some stuff, guys. Give me 1 second. Sure. Yes, although The Right Stuff was based on historical events and real people, substantial dramatic liberties were taken. Neither Yeager's flight in the X-1 to break the sound barrier early in the film, or his later nearly fatal flight in the NF-104A were spur of the moment. Conspiracy decided events, as the film seems to imply. They actually were part of the routine testing program for both aircraft. Yeager had already flown both aircraft a number of times previously and was very familiar with them. Jack Ridley had actually died in 1957, even though his character appears in several key scenes taking place after that. Most notably, including Yeager's 1963 flight of the NF-104A. The Right Stuff depicts Cooper arriving at Edwards in 1953, reminiscing of Grissom there about the two of them having supposedly flown together at the Langley Air Force Base and the hanging out with Grissom and Slayton, including all three supposedly being present at Edwards. When Scott Crossfield flew at March 2nd in November 1953, the film shows the three of them being recruited together there for the astronauts program in the late 1957, with Grissom supposedly expressing keen interest in becoming a star voyager. According to their retrospective NASA biographies, none of the three was posted to Edwards before 1955, Slayton in 1955, and Grissom and Cooper in 1956. And neither of the latter two had previously trained at Langley. By the three astronauts recruitment began in late 1957 after the Soviets had orbited Sputnik. Grissom had already left Edwards and returned to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where he had served previously and was happy with the new assignment. Okay, there you go, guys.
And that's your story night. Your story for tonight, kids. Go to bed.
No, look, any film that has historical figures in it is going to have accuracy issues.
And you don't always need to point them out, though. It's not like it's not like I think, like, for example, most people understand that when they're watching Dark Shadows, there's no such town as Collinsport in Maine. They get that. It's most docudramas, although there are some that have been lauded for their accuracy, it's like, you can't. If you were to put actual history on film, it would probably be boring. So yes, you need to take some creative license.
Yeah. Well, no, there's no doubt about that, because that's the thing with history. History often tends to be, when it's told just plain Jane, it's going to be boring. You have to throw in the entertainment aspect of Hollywood and people wanting to see something. And they not only do that with this movie, but they do a lot of great things with this movie by the way they filmed the flying sequences, the way they told the story of the astronauts who went up. Look, is it a movie that they should be showed in schools? Absolutely. Because I know it has been showed in schools. This and was the Apollo movie of Tom Hanks. That's shown in schools a lot. Both those ones are. And rightfully so. They should be, because they're historical films. So, but all films, when you deal with history, are going to have accuracy issues. They're supposed to.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, there was no Apollo 18. That's just a movie. There was no.
I had that idea for a long time, actually, like a Cthulhu story of the lost mission and them going up there and them knowing that there's these two guys and they have the oxygen that's with them. I kind of liked Apollo 18, as stupid as it was.
Saying it's bad. It's just that
it's a derided movie.
Yeah, I figured, since Jules being a stickler for historical accuracy,
I need to point that out.
Why not, right?
Dennis Dugan never went up in a space shuttle with his robot duplicate and wound up back in King Arthur's court. William Buck Rogers was not the last American to fly alone.
Oh my God. What's you guys' favorite scene in this movie?
The historically inaccurate ones.
God.
My favorite scene in this one, normally this is where I'd say, well, every scene, but I actually really want to ask what is my favorite scene in this movie, and it is the Claire de Lune sequence that's just told in eye contact between these men who are trained on engines of violence to be pioneers by sitting on the greatest controlled explosions ever crafted. Basically, the inheritors of incredible violence. These Apollos of these true chariots of fire. And yet, if you meet an astronaut, they're boring, and they have to be, because they have to deal with such intense stuff with such incredible stoicism and calmness, and that does read as boring. But maybe there is also a kind of Zen serenity that they have in being able to soar and do these super heroic things, but they do it while they do it both engaging incredible technical know-how. They were all mathematicians, they were all engineers, and martial know-how, but also there has to be something intrinsically human about them that appreciates the angelic quality that they have, that they have been imbued with. The astronauts in the film are this wonderful mixture of the sacred and the profane. And that sequence where now they're there as friends, and now they're there just being able to enjoy this unbelievably rare bond of being some of the only humans on the planet to do this unbelievably extraordinary thing. Really, after so much sound and fury, it is just this perfect moment where the movie takes a very nourishing deep breath, and the diaphragm somehow allows the lungs of the film to fill with air more fully than it ever has, and than it ever would need to. I think it's just a stunning sequence.
Gordon?
I'm going to say there are two scenes that I enjoy. The first is the press conference scene, because if the scene Patrick's talking about is the movie inhaling, that's the press conference scene is the movie exhaling.
Yes.
And you see this they're no longer rivals. They're not dudes that are part of a mission. They are colleagues.
Share it,
brother. Have each other's backs.
Yeah.
The other scene that I really love is that it's when John Glenn goes up with the little sparkly things and the camera.
Oh.
Because I love the fact that it's almost like the movie is saying, you know what? It's no longer just about how far we can go. It's about how much we have of a sense of wonder that we do. That, Glenn was was noted for, I think, being up there the longest. He had his camera with him. It shows it's more than just getting out of the atmosphere. It's that sense of there's something here we should see that we've never seen before.
How and how far back does this endeavor really go?
Mm-hmm.
That you have this Aboriginal shaman, conjuring who knows what, who himself is referred to as a star voyager. And that it really makes you step back and think, not how different these guys are and how far we've come, but how similar we are and how universal this drive is, and how and the respect. It doesn't condescend to the astronauts saying, they don't have a sense of spirituality, they're just a bunch of button pushing dolts. Nor does it say, look how quaint, he thinks he's flying through space, the little shaman there. No, it treats them both with tremendous respect.
And the interesting thing is that I'm not sure he was this at the time, but John Glenn was an ordained Presbyterian minister.
Interesting.
And so I'm not sure if he was, when he was at the Mercury, when he was part of that mission, but I think there's a subtle sense of there is more out there than we can see. And that's where I think the movie, it's the natural climax of the movie, because then I think it's Dennis Quaid who goes next. But there's this real sense of it's no longer just an achievement in terms of we beat the Russians. It almost seems existential in a way. Like there's a new idea that is being formed as to why we are going up there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the last climax of the movie, I would say, is actually happening during the Claire de Lune sequence, where he's going up in that, boost and glide return system plane that he has the catastrophic failure. He's still, God damn it, he's going to get into space. And it's the machine that fails, not the man. It's the man who survives.
I think
this film is a masterpiece.
It really is.
Yeah. I think when you look at this film too, you think back to when man explored the sea, when you had the Vikings and all that, and looking for new, Columbus finding new land. But men always explored, but it was always the push to explore. And even with this movie, it's that drive, it's that push to explore outer space. My favorite scene in this movie is when Dennis Quaid's character actually goes up, and I think it's his character that has some of the issues that goes on, but it shows you that, hey, without failure, you're not going to have success though too, because in order to succeed, you're going to fail first. But they do succeed here. So
one of the things I was gonna mention, Joel, you were talking about the nautical influence in this movie, because there's often this air sea dichotomy in our soldiers, our explorers, and so on and so forth. And who should unify that but Alan Shepard, who maybe is the easiest character in the movie to identify with in a lot of ways. Was certainly one of them. And that it does get around to embracing the sea. The Navy calls them aviators. They say they're better than pilots, and the movie never backs away from that assertion.
Well, it has nothing to do specifically with this movie, but Columbus claimed to have saw a UFO. Christopher Columbus.
He was a noble, wise man.
And then when you think of Travis, I think it's Travis Walton's story, the guy in Arizona who fired in the sky.
Sure.
It's like, look, do I personally believe in aliens? No. Do I believe in UFOs? Yeah, because there are identified
flying them.
Yeah, there are identified
aliens. Yeah.
So, I mean, but this here, it really shows you where we once were and how far we've come, though, too. This is a good movie to watch. It's a great movie to go watch.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never seen The Right Stuff, go watch it. It's on YouTube for free with ads. So it's damn worth it.
A nice way to dig yourself out of that hole, Joel, but I still think you hate puppies and democracy.
No. But like I once said, I never met a werewolf that didn't deserve a silver bullet. But there's that.
You also said Quentin Collins should be a cannibal.
You've also made various rude comments about architectural aspects of people's houses. So,
well, here's the thing with Quentin Collins being a cannibal: you don't have to show cannibalism; you just have to suggest it. That gets done in a lot of movies, actually.
That's right. You're right.
Well, here's an example. Look at the original Cat People. When you watch the original Cat People, the woman tears apart the doctor. What's she doing to him? She's probably eating him.
Instead of his Victrola, they find Quentin's litter box.
They don't show that necessarily. They don't show her devouring him. but you can take away with the suggestion of what she's doing to him.
He's got us. He's
Just
got
saying.
us, Gordon.
Just saying.
Yeah, Joe, you seem a little too obsessed with cannibalism. Is there something you're trying to tell us?
He's just hungry. He's hangry.
You know, Jewel, if you want to step away and like grab yourself a snack, you know, Patrick and I can keep the audience entertained.
Oh my God.
Jardiance is really swell.
I give this movie a 10. What do you guys give it?
10.
10.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to add about The Right Stuff before we get on out of here?
Yeah, if you have to choose between Disney Plus and this movie, see this movie. It is a masterpiece.
Between literally
it is
everything on the Disney Plus network and this movie. See this movie.
Or just avoid Disney Plus altogether and watch this movie. Here's the thing. You don't have to pay to watch this movie. You can watch it free on YouTube. And even if you did have to pay for this movie, it would still be worth it more than paying for Disney Plus.
Yeah, use your local library. If they have an interlibrary loan, you could get a copy of this on DVD and Blu-ray for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, libraries tend to do sell movies, which is a lot of fun.
And then contact Jewel on Facebook and tell him that he's too much of a stickler for historical accuracy, and then ask him about his attitude about puppies. And democracy.
Oh my God! Well, I don't even vote, dogs.
Godspeed, Jewel saying.
Yeah, I don't even vote.
Comments below, kids.
Yeah, comments below. I don't even vote.
Like, share, and subscribe, and all that other
bragging
stuff.
Oh my God. Links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box and to his website. Link to the College Sport Historical Society will be in the description box, and links to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Book Unbound will be in the description box. Gentlemen, is there anything you want to do Tuesday? Because I got an interview Monday.
Yeah, Rollerball.
Okay. That's on Tubi, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it's on Tubi.
You've been provided copies of it. I know that.
Yes. All right, I'll watch Rollerball.
We're talking the James Caan Rollerball,
not the Chris Klein, Rebecca Romaine.
Wait, isn't Paul Heyman in the remake too? The guy.
I don't know. I don't want to know.
The guy from wrestling. Isn't he in the remake too?
I don't want to know.
Let's just see the James Caan version.
Yeah, We'll watch the good version, and then you can watch wrestling on your own.
Tuesday at 10:30. Is that good, guys?
I love it.
All right, I'll see. For me. I will see you guys for Rollerball, which sounds like just a lot of fun. See you guys. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Good night.